So we're going to start seated this evening. We've got all our props arranged. As ever, just take it easy in these classes. There's an interesting write-up on Facebook from one of my teachers, and she was talking about the sort of the belief about pushing yourself harder is better and backing out is seen as a negative. And in this practice style particularly, you want to find the edge and then just move back a little bit rather than pushing into it too hard. You just let your body find its own route. And for that, you need to give it a little bit of time and wait. And it's a very fine line, and it takes sometimes a bit more time for people to develop that ability to see it and feel it. And in different parts of your body, it will surface in a different way as well. So you might find you're easy on one side and not the other side, or it might just be completely different postures that you sort of like and don't like, I guess you could put it that way. But it is a journey of growth to learn to be on the edge and then just sit back a little bit and wait and observe. So we're going to practice that this evening. Just let ourselves sit up nice and tall, whichever posture you've taken. And they're going to take some little neck circles. They're called half neck circles because we don't roll the head back all the way. Draw the chin in towards the chest. Take the chin over towards that left shoulder slowly. And then start to take the eyes up towards the sky. So looking not quite directly above, then rolling the neck over to the other side, and then down. So I'm straining the muscles in the neck when I look forwards, but I'm being very careful about where I take them on the journey towards the back of the mat. Because I want to work on the muscles. I want to work on the discs in the neck. I'd rather not squash the blood supply or trap a nerve. There's an option. That's the one I'd move away from. Take it in the opposite direction, very gently. It's a really nice way of stretching your neck out if you've been working from home on laptops all day, or just for some other reason looking down for long periods of time. Come back into the center, and I'm just going to move sideways just so that you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to come into butterfly pose. So the feet are now in front of the knees quite a bit. There's about an equal distance between the knee and the foot and the knee and the hip. And the soles of the feet are together. I'm going to wriggle a little bit onto the front edge of the sitting bones. And then just allow the chin to drop. And I'm going to let the head come sort of straight down towards the floor. So rather than leaning forwards, you will get a little bit of rolling forwards. It's going to be natural. But I'm not trying to aim to get my head to my feet. I'm just letting it sink down and see where it gets to. Now, generally, when this happens, the pelvis tilts back a little bit. The diaphragm gets a little bit congested, so breathing tends to be a little bit more in the chest. Again, we can let the back of the head rest down. You can play around with where you place the arms. And as the seconds and minutes pass by, you might find that your body releases and sinks a little lower. And that in itself presents more challenges. We'll use the hands to lift ourselves up gently. Now we're going to come into saddle pose, hero's pose. So I'm going to turn my bolster long ways. If the knees are tight, what I would recommend is maybe taking another brick or even straddling the bolster so you're a little higher, and you put the brick crossways of the mat so that both sitting bones are supported. You want to sit far enough forwards that your knees can come together and the heels can go out wide and the boot laces are down towards the floor. So if you're particularly tight in the ankles, it might be the reason that you need to sit a little higher to give yourself a bit more comfort. We'll let the hands come in quite close to the body so we can let the shoulders relax out. And then just sit up nice and tall. So we're getting a little bit of opening in knees, ankles and hips. We're starting to establish where is a neutral position for that pelvis to sit so the spine can sit effortlessly above it, which probably for most of us means, you know, just checking the postural habits a little bit. Now I'm going to work on the shoulders. So I'm going to take the right hand out to the side. Just lift the hand up directly above and then fold at the elbow so that the other hand can come in and start to take hold of that said elbow. I'm going to try and place the right hand towards the nape of the neck. And then I'm just going to let the elbow travel a little bit further towards the back of the mat. So I can bring my arm a little bit more into the center line of my body. So passing the head a little bit. I might force the head down a little. I'm trying to draw it to the center and let it move back a little bit. It's going to flare the ribs up. And then I'll release both hands back down. I'll gradually take the left hand out, take it up towards the sky, drop it over. Use the other hand to find the elbow as I let that left hand come in towards the nape of the neck and draw the elbow towards the back of the mat a little bit and more over the center line. So it's a really big stretch down the triceps, all of the shoulder blade. The shoulder blade itself kind of wings out to the side a little bit. You get a little bit of flaring in the middle and upper back, so you're going to feel the ribs kind of lift up a little bit as well. It will test you towards finding that balance in the pelvis. You might need to lean forwards a little bit to counteract the arching. Now, trying to relax the left shoulder as much as we can. And then we'll release. Both hands back down again. Going to lift very gently off of those bricks and blocks, just leaning forwards and moving them out to the side. I'm going to bring the heels now underneath the sitting bones and the thighs together. I'm very gently going to take the hands back. And see if I can just let the knees lift off the ground. So I'm going to stretch those ankle ligaments out and I'm going to change the shape of the arch of the foot a little bit by pressing the top of the arch towards the base of the foot. So this is kind of like if you can imagine your fist being clenched and then stretching it out, extending the fingers out. That's what we're doing to the foot. Same number of bones, just different shapes. Now we'll ease ourselves back down. Come forward very gently, and we're going to stretch each leg out slowly, one leg at a time. And then we're going to come into child's pose. But I want the child's pose to be quite high. So I'm going to take my block and my bolster, which is no really thicker than a rolled up blanket. So if you've got a proper bolster, you might be quite happy with just that. I'm going to straddle it into the thighs. The knees are taken out to the side. And then lay the ribs down gently. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to ease down. I want the spine to be nice and long. I'm going to turn the head. You can bring the hands onto the bolster if you wish. Take the elbows out wide. So I'm in child's pose, but the spine is very flat and long. We haven't got this sort of rounded spine. We're just working into the groins and the hips, really. Now, if you do choose to take the head to one side, you might find it gets a little tight. Every now and again, you might want to just change over sides. Do that as smoothly and easily as you can, preferably on an exhale. And we begin to lift ourselves gently out of that pose. I'm going to move the bolster out of the way. I handily have my block here already, but I'm going to take that behind. Allow myself to just come up on all fours. I'm going to take the feet the same distance apart as that block, and then take the heels gently onto the corner edges. So I'm going to come into my squat. Turn the toes out slowly. And then I'm going to see if I can round the spine and just take the hands forwards a little bit and let the back of the head drop. So this would be very different to the way that we would do this pose in a hatha class. We'll be trying to get as much space in the spine as we can. We're going to use this to let the spine round. We're going to keep the fingers on the floor, just out in front. Again, the diaphragm is constricted. So we're going to work on smoothing the breath out, finding the spaces to breathe into as we let ourselves sink. So this will definitely work on the stretching out the lower back muscles. They feed into the glutes as well. Not necessarily as a physical connection, but impacted. It's really the connective tissue on the pelvis that's being affected here, mostly. And feeling that lovely big stretch across the ribs and the back, the shoulders, as you breathe in and out. And slowly start to lift out of this pose. And we'll work our way onto all fours. So I'm just going to move the block out to the side. Bring the hands up towards the front end of the mat. The hands about shoulder distance apart and underneath the shoulders. Bring the knees into about hip distance. And then I want to take my right foot to the outside of the right wrist. And turn the toes out a little bit, but keep the heel on the mat. Walking the left foot back as far as I can. And letting the hips sink down to the floor. I'm going to move the left hand just another inch out to the side. And then slowly bring that right hand onto the thigh. Let the leg rock out to the side a little bit. Again, normally in a hatha class, we'd be talking about taking the spine up. We just want to rotate the spine round and let this lower shoulder sink a little closer to the ear. Again, opposite to how we would normally work. And because it's now sort of firmly ingrained in my body, that's how I move in a hatha class. This takes a lot of deliberation and concentration. I can feel that left shoulder is very confused. I'll slowly bring myself out. Rearrange myself into that nice tabletop position, bringing the hands back in under the shoulders. And then taking the left foot out to the side. Once it's in line with the hand, foot out to the side. Slide the back leg away. Take the right hand out an inch or so to the side. Let the hips sink down a little lower. Don't have to rush into the twist. Take it when the time feels right. Letting that left leg hang out to the side. And then sinking into that front shoulder slowly. And then we'll start to bring ourselves slowly out of this pose as well. Now we're going to take a pose called Rested Buddha. And because my bolster is very, very easy to compress down, I'm going to use the block underneath. But again, if you've got a big bolster, you might find that that's actually too high and just want to change it for a cushion. We're going to lay over this side on, and we want the bolster to just be between the ribs and the hips. So when you're ready, just allow yourself to play around. Taller people possibly going to take a little bit higher than shorter people because they've got a bigger space generally between the ribs. Lie on whichever side's easiest for you to work with, and then lengthen the lower hand out and ease the head down onto that arm. Now you can keep the knees bent and the legs together if you wish, or you can lengthen them out, and if it feels good you can put one leg on top of the other, or you could have one foot slightly in front of the other, your choice. The more stacked the legs are on top, the more work the balancing muscles have to do. And since we're trying to rest them, one of the options with bent knees or foot in front of the other foot might actually make it a little easier. When you're ready, we'll take the top hand, or so I'll call it, onto the hip, and then float that up on a breath in, and then just drop it across and down. So one hand on top of the other. We try and breathe nice and easily. So we're just putting a side loading into the spine, a lateral stretch. Now we're going to come out of that by taking the top hand back in front of the body and then bend the knees. You can press into this top hand and use that to lift up so that we don't strain the bottom arm, which is in a sort of a weak position there for lifting. I'm going to move myself around purely so that I can still look at the clock. So if you're able to just roll from one side to the other slowly, that's great. Otherwise, you're going to follow me. It's off to ease in. Rocking the ribs over. Take a little time to check that you're comfortable. Always a chance to take some little micro movement adjustments. And then when you're ready, you take the top hand onto the hip and just float it up towards the sky and across. Leave one hand on top of the other. Now, ideally, the arms would be wrapping around the ears, but since I've got an earpiece in this side, I have to leave it a little higher. Trying to regulate a nice, soft, even breath. And again, we're going to bring that top hand in front of the body. Allow ourselves to bend the knees if they weren't already. On an exhale, lean into that front hand, push away from the floor, bring yourself up nice and safely. Now I'm going to take a reclined twist, which we've done before. I'm going to take the block and the brick to make a little bit of a ramp. Now, facing the front of the mat, you could be the other way around. Again, I'll be swapping about a little bit. Now, when your bolster or your blanket is on here, you want to make sure that it's not hanging over the end too much, so it's supported. And if you're using a bolster, then generally a guideline is a fist distance between the hip bone and the bolster. Gives you a good chance to land in the right place. If you're using a cushion, then you kind of got to gauge it differently, because obviously you've got a different length of object in front of you. So it might take you a little while. But once you're in the right place, your legs are out to the side 90 degrees, you're going to bend the bottom knee. So this bottom thigh is 90 degrees to the bolster, the shin follows the line of the mat. I'm going to turn the chest towards the little cushioned ramp. I'm going to take both hands either side, so my chest is starting to look directly down towards the support. And then I'm just going to slide the top leg back, so it's down the center line of the mat. Have a little looky and check it's okay. You want to keep the foot connected to the ground there, and then bend your knee to make the last kink in the half swastika leg position. And then you can lay down gently and bring your hands to wherever you want them to be around that bolster. So some of us can be very, very flat to this bolster. The chest is going to be pointing directly down. A lot of us, it will be pointing off to the side to some degree. Some it will be even flatter than that. But wherever you feel comfortable is where you need to be. Slowly lift out. So take the hands underneath the shoulders a little bit. Exhale to breathe on the way up as we lift. And then we're going to just turn ourselves to the opposite side. Okay, we'll just take a little time to settle in, align ourselves. And then when you're ready, just going to slide that rear foot. Follow the line of the bolster, bend the knee so that the knee can just rest against the floor, and then ease yourself down. Generally, it's more comfortable to face the way the bottom leg is facing. Some people find it easier to go the opposite direction, but it's a smaller percentage of the population. So allow yourself to see which way feels more rested. Could definitely feel different one side to the other. It might be because you can rotate further around, or it just might be that the muscles feel different. You have more of a bias to twisting one way naturally during the course of your day. So we've got about 45 seconds left. And we'll bring the hands back underneath. Press gently away. I'm going to draw the knees forwards this time. Allow myself to slowly sit upright. Move the bolsters and bricks out to the side. And I'm going to have my two bricks about midway down the mat either side for a little bit later on. Going to cross the ankles and roll up onto all fours, but however you get there, you choose. Take a little breath here and tuck the toes underneath. Lift the hips up towards the sky. Just walk the feet in a little bit. Have them hip distance apart. Let the hands walk in towards the toes. Rest the ribs on the thighs. Fingers on the floor. Let's take a few breaths here. So we're definitely going to warm up those hamstrings and quads. Take one more breath here. Slowly bring the hands onto the hips. Lengthen the chest forward, draw the belly in, and slowly press down through both legs on the exhale as you lift up. We'll take a moment, just letting the hands drop by the side of the body to let the head start to feel like the blood's come back into it. And then we'll bring the hands back in towards the heart. We're going to hinge slowly forwards. We'll soften the knees a fraction as we come down already. Take the weight a little more into the toes. Bring the hands gently down to the floor. Fingers all the way to the front of the mat. Step yourself back into your down dog. And as you do, bring your toes together on the center line. Now we're going to come into pigeon pose. So we're going to draw the left knee in towards the chest, move towards the plank, and then slide the left knee to the outside as the left wrist, bringing the heel underneath the groin. Walk the right foot as far back as you can. Take a little breath, and then come down onto the elbows. As you exhale, keep the spine long, and try and lengthen the right leg as far away as you can. Draw the belly in. Let the shoulders roll back a little bit so they're away from the ears. And try and crown of the head lengthens forwards. Now you might start to feel your right knee lifting off the ground a little bit. So just at the point where it starts to lift is where you want to stay. Don't want to go any more extreme than that. That's enough of a lengthening out. Remember to keep the belly drawn in. Got about another 30 seconds or so. Bring the hands back. Take the toe on the back foot. Roll the shoulders back, lift the knee and the hips a little, and then ease our way back into that down dog. We'll bring the feet back onto the center line, just as we did before. Take a breath in position, and then draw the right knee towards the chest, come forward into the plank, slide the knee, guide it out to the side. Heel underneath the groin, so wiggle the toes around to help get that in the right place, and then walk the left foot as far back as you can. Bring the elbows down onto the ground. Lengthen out through the back leg, through the spine. Roll the shoulders back a little bit, the belly engaged. And we'll start to come back up. So we're just going to bring the hands back in, and then I'm going to roll out my bottom to the right side so that I can use my hand then to draw the left leg back in. So moving back into the position where the feet are out in front. So I'm going to use the block underneath my bottom. Allow myself to lift up slowly. Legs out in front, sitting up tall. I'm just going to lengthen the legs out a little bit, being careful not to press into the back of the knees, and flex the toes towards myself. Let the chest lift, roll the shoulders back. Think about the head position as well, draw the belly in. Press the sitting bones down. And I'm going to relax here and take the left foot underneath and to the outside of the hip. And I'm going to draw the right foot in so that it's just to the outside of the line of the right hip. So I'm not crossing over like we normally do, it's just drawing it straight back in. And my heel and my shin are kind of touching each other here. Now I want this knee to be pointing up towards the sky. I'm going to rotate the body gently towards the left, and then I'm going to brace the arm on the right and the left, sorry, the right arm and right leg together. So I'm trying to bring my knee towards the center line and using my arm to give a little bit of resistance. Turning the chest round, opposite side, looking over the rear shoulder. So quite often we're stretching the hips out. Today we're stretching them in. You'll notice that it's quite easy to draw the belly in this version. And it naturally happens as soon as you exhale. And then we can release. So we'll do the same to the opposite side. So as best we can, this lower leg is pointing directly forwards, the same direction as the hips. We'll take a little time to place and play around with that foot, making sure it's parallel and the knee is high. Then we're ready, we'll take a little turn, brace the arm on the leg, start pressing towards each other. And then we'll release. Again, we're taking the legs out in front, and we're going to be laying down on the floor for the next 10 minutes or so. So if your room's a little chilly, maybe grabbing a blanket or an extra layer. I have those blocks by the side of the hips eventually. I'm going to ease my way down onto the floor. So just rolling down either from the side or by bringing yourself down using your arms and your core muscles. I'm going to bring the feet in as close to the body as I can and take the bricks out just to the side of the hips. And I slowly let the legs open out, turning the soles of the feet together. And then I turn the bricks in so that they support the thighs. And I want them close in rather than a long way out. I purposely want my knees to be higher than they could naturally get to if I didn't have the bricks there. So normally if my legs weren't using the blocks, they would be further apart, lower to the ground. And the intensity of the stretch in the groin would be a lot higher. With this way, supporting it, I've got an opening in the groin, but I've got a balance of release into the hip muscles on the external side as well. So this is a good, really nice way of relaxing the spine and the hips. My pelvis is in a neutral position, and then I can just let the hands be by the side of the body. I'm going to stay here for about 3 or 4 minutes. Now you could use cushions under the thighs. That works quite nicely as well, providing you can draw them in close enough to the body. Allow a sense of gravity to draw you down towards the floor. Try to focus on the breath so you stay conscious in the moment. Noticing how your body changes its feelings, its relationship to the floor as time moves on. I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper breath. Bring the hands underneath the back of the thighs. Just use the fingers to start the lift and draw the legs back together. Move the blocks and the bricks and cushions out to the side that we've been using. And we're going to wiggle the feet out to the corner edges of the mat. So we'll take the feet wide first, get the sides of the mat underneath, and then we can slide the heels out, just following the line of the mat, one leg at a time. Very specifically keeping the heels attached to the ground as we do that. So we don't put any sudden sharp changes into the spine or the pelvis. We let it move carefully to whatever position it needs to be. And just checking your tummy is away from the roof of the mouth, and jaw is soft, eyes are closed. Shoulders are resting down on the floor. Hips and legs feel like they're lengthening out towards the bottom of the mat. And we'll slowly start to stretch the fingers and toes. Let the ankles and wrists join in. Take a little bit of a longer breath. And enjoy a nice stretch. Just following your instincts. And slide the heels again back in, one leg at a time, keeping them in contact with the floor. And then one knee at a time in towards the body. I'll find a little hug, stretch, rock and roll, whatever feels good. And slowly on an exhale, we'll roll onto our right side. Take a nice breath here. Use the exhale to unwind, bring ourselves slowly back up to sitting. So taking a posture that's easy to sit in to finish our class this evening. Let yourself sit tall as you bring your hands to your heart, taking a breath in. Let the chin drop gently. Let the belly draw to the spine and allow the bow to bring you towards the floor, soon in your practice. As inhale, the spine can lift, the head follows, the eyes open. Namaste. Have a lovely evening and a great week ahead. I'll see you soon. Take care.